Despite what happened last year at Turf Moor and the still vivid memory of Wesley's career ending there, I had a very good feeling on Saturday morning, and Villa delivered a comprehensive reality check for which we should now celebrate. I'm a little superstitious, so I'm going back to back with the Basil Hayden's. Basil Hayden's bourbon for Buendia as we review Burnley 1, Aston Villa 3. Another sunny day in the parlor. Oh, sweetie, are you okay? I'm thinking about doing a spreadsheet that shows how Villa could still actually catch Wolves. And you know, now's not a really great time to have an owner who's connected to a phony shell company in China, which is built entirely on dodgy paper. And that is something that we all know about at Aston Villa. And if you start seeing a fire sale this summer because the economy's not so good right now in that country, or players aren't being re-signed, or there's no reinvestment, then maybe Wolves is an early contender for shock relegation in 2023. I bet the odds would be really good on that. Maybe I should put a 50 on it. I call it the Holy Trinity Show because Trinity means three, and we want to dissect the three big issues or moments that defined Burnley 1, Villa 3, starting with the key statistics, which were remarkably close, which does beg the question, do statistics even matter? If you watched the game, you'd think Villa was all over the hosts, but they weren't. In fact, in some categories, Burnley had the better of it, including XG, more shots as well, Villa better accuracy rate on target. But duels won favored the home side, and possession was only shaded, I think, when the stuffing was taken out of Burnley at 3-0. One thing Burnley did very well, though, was the long balls. That's what they do well. They had 40 of them, and they were accurate on 60% of them. Key issue, Dean is class. This player is so poised and so intelligent under pressure. I'll show you a little thing, and you may wonder, well, that's not such a big deal. But first he wins a duel, and then he's looking off to his right down the line, which opens up a lane for him to pass into. And I know you're probably thinking, well, that's pretty obvious. But from that angle, everything looks easy. At field level, it's not like that. And just by changing his body position, he opens that channel to then play the easy ball to his center back, and out they go. And shortly after, Villa scored from there. And the run he makes and the timing of it on the 2-0 goal is just different level. I'll show you that later. Key moment late in the first half, Konsa falls asleep. And this is worrisome because Villa's 2-0 up at this stage going into halftime, and he is just way too casual twice. I believe Aston Villa is going to add an elite right-footed center back this summer, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but right now it feels like Konsa is the odd man out. It doesn't feel like Mings is the one who needs replacing at this time. And imagine if Tyrone Mings is the number 2 center back, maybe without the added responsibility of wearing the armband. I actually think that could be very, very good for him. This man had Burnley and the whole crowd on strings. Another key issue, Tarkowski's injury at the beginning of the second half. This was key because the captain comes out of the locker room. They need a response right away, down 2-0, and within seconds of the half kicking off, he's out. And it wasn't just that he was gone for the rest of this game. You could almost feel that vibe like, uh-oh, what if he's hurt worse and won't be here for the rest of our games? That was, I think, going through a few of the players' minds, and for me, that was almost a knockout punch moment. Irritating issue, conceding late in second half stoppage time, thus preventing 3 straight clean sheets on the bounce and a 12th for Emi Martinez on the season. And the ball played in isn't the greatest, but what happens after that? It's as if the entire middle 2 channels of the field just open wide up. That's about as irritating as the one they conceded late at Norwich Carrow Road 2 years ago when they were up 5-0. Key moment, Carney Chukwuemeka coming on. Don't know if I would have seen that even a couple of weeks ago. It surprised me, but I was happy to see it because, as you know, there's this giant game of chicken going on right now between the club and his representation, and no matter how that is resolved, He has to play week in and week out with and against men. And I hope that is as an Aston Villa player, because it is rare to find a player at his age with his stature who can run like that. Oh, to be able to run like Carney Chukwuemeka, that fluid movement, quick and deceptive acceleration while still keeping the ball under control. I've gone back and forth over and over again on this player, cash in on him this summer, pay him, play him, and now I'm firmly in the do everything you can to keep him around camp, with one minor exception. We see the talent, we see the potential. It's obvious he's had it for a long time. What we do not know, and only the people closest to him will know, what's going on between the ears. Because if he's full of himself, well then on you go, because you don't need players like that around. This contract would set up all of his future contracts, and that's why I believe this is all down to financial terms, and I think Villa should pay a little bit above the odds. And by the way, if his representation truly thinks he's going to a top 6 side and playing regularly, they're deluded and they should be fired. Big issue number 3 was Villa's midfield monopoly. The entire plan worked today. Call it a 5-3-2 or whatever you want to call it. The key was Callum Chambers playing in this position, which sometimes was as a defensive midfielder, as he did often when he was breaking in with Fulham, and sometimes he dropped between center backs and made it 3 there, allowing both the fullbacks to deal with Lennon and McNeil. And then you had the 3 central midfielders outnumbering Burnley's 2 central midfielders often. And even when balls were played into the box for Weghorst or Ashley Barnes, they were 2v3 versus Villa center backs. Dwight McNeil's an excellent player as far as I'm concerned. He's still a young guy too, but rarely did he ever have a chance to truly pick out Ashley Barnes or Big Weghorst up front because he was denied that space. This was probably the only one, and it kind of goes off the back of Weghorst's head. So you have to say, from the technical point of view, the strategy and the tactics, they were spot on today. So fair play. On the 1-0 goal, great combination between Luiz, McGinn, and then Buendia, and the weight of pass by Emi Buendia there is absolutely sensational. There was a calmness and a real connection between Luiz, Buendia, and McGinn, which does make me wonder what Dougie and Super John McGinn would be like if they did have an elite and specialist number 6 behind them to give them more freedom to play. On the 3-0 goal, Villa won a whole bunch of duels right in their own defensive third, finally and once again finding Buendia, who drops deep, and then he releases McGinn in what ended up turning into Ollie Watkins' goal. Number 2 was the 1-0 goal. And I already showed you the lead up to this goal. It was excellent. All 3 of Villa's goals in this game were from open play, and rarely has Aston Villa scored early in games all season. Whereas for Burnley, one of the things they've done well is that they haven't conceded in those first 15 minutes. So to get hit not even 7 minutes in and by the former Burnley man was like an uppercut right to the button. It made the crowd silent and jittery. It made Burnley kind of jittery. And actually, when you watch the goal again, the ball was bobbling around a little bit, and Ings, doing Ings things, managed to somehow make it look easy. And this was a huge moment given the situation that Burnley's in. And the number 1 big issue or moment that defined Burnley 1, Aston Villa 3, pretty obvious. It was brilliant Buendia. Man of the match, quite simply. I showed you his involvement in goals 1 and 3, and then of course he buries the 2-0 goal at an excellent time to do so, and to borrow from the top drawer of the cliche cupboard. You can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. Just make a clean connection and get it on target. And you want your 10 to be lingering around in those areas of the penalty area or front third. And sure enough, it's a great cutback, and he does make a great connection and gets the benefit of a little bit of a redirect. But it wasn't just the goal, the assist, and even the second assist on the Ollie Watkins goal. His stats were very good. He's tenacious. If I had to compare him to a dog, I'd say he's like a pit bull terrier running around out there. And in his position, for his 79 minutes, He did a lot of good things, including 4 recoveries, which means he's working hard to win the ball back, even in the front third sometimes. He had 2 out of 3 accurate long balls. That's decent at 67%. The accurate passes almost in the 90s, 25 of 28. And then he won 3 of 5 ground duels. And we've been screaming out for Emi Buendia to start games, but I do wonder sometimes if this holding him back a little bit this season will make him hungrier. He's certainly going to settle more, and I predict he is going to have a bumper season next year. You saw his stats, you saw his contributions, but it's the directness and urgency and tenacity of his game that makes him so unique. This was the right game for him to start under the circumstances. And he'd love to play against Liverpool, but I think little Phil is going to start on Tuesday, and maybe Buendia comes on near the end and provides something meaningful. This was all so well managed from tip to tail, with the exception of the last 90 seconds, and that comes down to the players just switching off, possibly because they were tired. And last key issue, with the squad rotation at the beginning of the game and then the substitutions throughout it, and then how late on Villa were literally strolling the game with very little exertion, I think that puts them in a pretty good position going into Tuesday's game with Liverpool, who have had to go hell-bent for leather week after week, sometimes 3 times a week, chasing 4 trophies with trips to Spain, and they couldn't quite get the job done against Spurs at home on Saturday. That's pretty taxing, and Villa's going to go into that game in a very good frame of mind. So no matter what happens to end the season, I think Aston Villa is going to have a pretty big say on what happens to Burnley at one end and what happens in the title challenge at the other. I must admit, there is something charming about Turf Moor. After all, it's been Burnley's home since 1883, and it may not be a Premier League ground for much longer. So let's use it as a backdrop to the categories we've been following throughout the season for Aston Villa, and there was an uptick in numbers once again for the second straight match, including the record away from Villa Park, 22 out of 54 points now. Watkins and Ings both hitting the score sheet in back-to-back games. 17's not bad. 20 would be nice. And of course, 25 to 30 would be exceptional. And against the bottom 6 now, Villa, 20 out of a possible 33 points. But I'm being greedy and irritated when I see the clean sheets stuck at 11. Brad Friedel's record, of course, 15 in one season. Busy week ahead. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to have the Liverpool recap ready on Tuesday itself, probably Wednesday. But I'm looking forward to the Gerrard reunion 2.0 at Villa Park. Until then, be well, be happy. I'm having a Mother's Day Eve curry tonight. I cannot wait. And until the next time, as always, up the mighty Villa.